Chapter 1261. Leah continued. All birds are not allowed to leave the Mota Mountains. Did you think of anything? Think of what? Gu Mingming looked at Leah blankly and shook her head. Leah smiled and said, They say it is to protect the sacred object, but don't you feel that it is more like a form of imprisonment? She thought about what Ian had said. The living conditions were terrible, but they were not allowed to leave. Once they left, they would be considered a traitor and a disgrace. If they returned, they would be attacked and killed by all the birds. This was not only inhumane, it was also a life imprisonment. Moreover, it was a hereditary system and their descendants would be trapped in the Mota Mountains forever. If it was just to protect something, they could just bring it along and guard another mountain. Why did they have to guard the Mota Mountains with the terrible weather? In that case, besides the love of the sky, they are also guarding the Mota Mountains. Gu Mingming raised her suspicions. Leah nodded in agreement and said, So they do not allow any birds to move out because they are afraid that the news will be leaked out and people will guess. Even Ian kept his mouth shut about what happened in Mota Mountains after he migrated out. If not for the fact that I had coincidentally asked him about the love of the sky, he would definitely have brought this secret to his grave, and never mentioned a word about it until his death. From this point of view, flying beasts were indeed more trustworthy than land beasts. After all, once land beasts mate, their partners are the most important, and they can do anything for their partners. Look at me and Elvis, we are the best examples. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, Yes, you two are the best. I must have saved the Milky Way in my previous life to be able to meet you two in this life. With that, Gu Mingming kissed Leah and Elvis on their cheeks. It felt like she was comforting a child, but the two males enjoyed it very much. Leah swayed his tail and looked at Elvis. He said, Mighty Wolf King, looks like we have to add another task to our journey. Elvis asked. Leah said, In order to meet Gu Mingming again in our next life, let's go save the Milky Way this time. If he doesn't need to be saved, I will appear and cripple him. Then you can come and chase me away. How about that? All right. Elvis's reply was simple and clean. Leah turned to look at Gu Mingming and asked, So Gu Mingming, who is the Milky Way? Where is he? Are you two trying to laugh me to death, and then inherit my inheritance? Leah looked at Gu Mingming's smiling face, his eyes filled with gentleness. After laughing with Gu Mingming for a while, Leah continued, But Mingming, do you know how the leader of the vulture tribe is chosen? Gu Mingming replied without thinking. Probably from fighting? Whoever is more powerful will be the clan leader. Wasn't it the same in the beast world? Leah shook his head and smiled faintly. No, whoever can sense the signal sent by the messenger of that great lord will be qualified to be the tribe leader. It's that lord again. Who is that lord? Gu Mingming frowned. Her instincts told her that she should know that great lord. After all, Gregory had sworn that that great lord was guarding the heart of the desert. Now that she had obtained the heart of the desert, it proved that she had at least seen that great lord before. Chapter 1262. So I should still go see my father and ask him who that mighty person is? Gu Mingming came to this conclusion. But Leah shook his head and said, The main point is not who that mighty person is, but the agreement between the vulture tribe and that mighty person. Gu Mingming had a hunch that this agreement had something to do with them obtaining the love of the sky, so she stared at Leah with sparkling eyes. But Leah suddenly changed the topic and said proudly, But I am not in the mood to say it now. Don't say things halfway. You will make me anxious to death. Gu Mingming shook Leah's shoulders and grumbled shamelessly. Leah was dizzy from her shaking, but he pursed his lips and didn't say a single word. Hubby. Gu Mingming's voice trilled 8 times at the end, making Lee's bones melt. He snickered and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, saying as if he was at a loss of what to do with her. Then let me ask you first, between the love of the sky and Elvis, who is more important? Gu Mingming didn't even think before answering. Elvis is more important. Leah nodded. Although he hid it well, a trace of disappointment still flashed across his eyes. The love of the sky represented their child. The little fox she yearned for so much was not worth mentioning in front of Elvis. She gave it up without a trace of hesitation. Leah looked up at Elvis, using his eyes to say, "Now you still dare to say that I am the one she likes the most? It doesn't matter even if you die, can she still live on?" Elvis didn't answer and just stared at Gu Mengmeng with a loving gaze. His eyes were filled with the bliss of dying without regrets. Gu Mengmeng didn't know the contents of Elvis and Li's conversation that night, and also didn't know what kind of feelings her answer had given to the two males. She just continued to ask, "Why? Is there any conflicting relationship between the love of the sky and the heart of the desert? If I obtain the love of the sky, will Elvis, who owns the heart of the desert, die?" That's not it. The speed at which Leah sorted out his emotions was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was all smiles again. He looked at Elvis ambiguously, and stretched out his slender fingers to draw circles on the red spider lily mark on Elvis's chest without saying a word. Elvis had goosebumps all over his body as he scolded coldly, "Scram!" Leah lifted his head and gave a provocative smile. Not only did he not move his hand away, he even placed his entire palm on Elvis's chest without any scruples. He even squeezed it impudently and said, "No." A thick mark appeared on Elvis's forehead and he gritted his teeth. "Don't do anything that will make Xiao Meng's imagination run wild. She will have a nosebleed again later." Once she said that, Leah immediately retracted his hand as if he had been electrocuted. He then looked at Gu Mengmeng in fear, and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw her calm expression. Ever since Elvis and Leah got drunk last winter, Gu Mengmeng had joked about their relationship until Elvis wanted to kill Leah and commit suicide to atone for his sins. Gu Mengmeng's Fujoshi heart was completely strangled in the cradle, and she did not dare to fantasize about those scenes anymore. Seeing the tense atmosphere between Leah and Elvis, Gu Mengmeng pushed Li's claws away from Elvis's chest and said, "Be serious." Chapter 1263. How should she put it? Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Laughing dryly, she asked, What marriage?" Leah glanced at Elvis but smiled without saying a word. Elvis's tail bristled from Li's laughter, and he ground his teeth loudly. Leah said leisurely, "In the vulture tribe, only the tribe leader can mate with outsiders, so only the tribe leader can sense the signal sent by that great lord, and descend the mountain. Then haha." Leah said slowly, "Don't laugh, I'm so scared." Gu Mengmeng rubbed her arms and stared at Leah with widened eyes. "Finish your sentence properly." Leah rubbed his own face and said, "Are you panicking? Don't you like to see me laugh the most? MMM?" Gu Mengmeng held Li's shoulders with both hands. "Please don't stop in the middle. Finish your sentence properly." Leah pointed at his face. "Give me the encouragement of love, and I will continue." Gu Mengmeng pressed her lips against his without another word. But Leah turned his head in an instant, and pressed his lips against hers accurately. A smile bloomed from the corners of his eyes. Li's hand threaded through Gu Mengmeng's black hair, and he gently rubbed her head. They were clearly an old married couple, but Gu Mengmeng's heart was still stirred by Li's sudden touch. Blushing, she took a step back and fell into Elvis's arms. Leah then continued, "I heard that the betrothal partner is the one who inherited the heart of the desert. When that great lord's messenger reaches the Mota Mountains to inform the vulture tribe leader will fly down from the mountain peak to fulfill the betrothal." But Li's gaze landed on Elvis's chest again. He couldn't help but laugh so hard that his shoulders shook. Gu Mengmeng's brain froze for a few seconds. She hugged Elvis with both hands like a child protecting her beloved toy. She shook her head furiously. No, I don't want the love of the sky anymore. If that bird dares to snatch my hubby away, I will stew him." Elvis was almost suffocated by Gu Mengmeng's strangulation, but he smiled blissfully like a foolish son of a landlord. He completely lost the imposing manner and prestige of a wolf king. Leah was originally trying to hold back his laughter, but after Gu Mengmeng's tantrum, he simply laughed out loud. The laughter from the stone castle reverberated in the sky above Sauter, and the entire sky seemed to have become brighter. After calming down, Gu Mengmeng nestled in Elvis's arms with a worried face and said, "No wonder that fellow's eyes kept glancing at Elvis's chest. Tizke, my hubby must have been molested by someone's eyes, right? I should have gouged out his eyes. Ah, I'm so jealous." Leah wagged his tail and said, "Hey Xiao Meng Meng, if others look at me like this, will you dig your eyes out too?" "Dig," Gu Meng Meng said firmly. "I will dig out the eyes of whoever dares to rape my man." Leah and Elvis could not help but chuckle. Xiao Meng's jealous look was really cute. Chapter 1264. Gu Mingming bit her fingers while shaking her feet. Her brain was in a frenzy. She had to get the love of the sky or Leah would not let her give birth to little foxes. She could not hand Elvis over. Damn it, she could not hand him over even if she died. She could not sell her husband no matter what. So she still had to start from Gregory. Weakness. What exactly was his weakness? Modern men were easy to guess. Wealth, power, and women. Any man could not escape from these three. To put it proudly, in the beast world, Gu Mingming herself was already the most powerful woman? But what did he say? He said he did not fancy her. Power? Mota Mountains was beyond the rules of the beast world and Gregory was the leader there. He probably had the highest power. Seeing how he despised land beasts and did not seem to want to be the leader here. Even if Gu Mingming gave him the official title of the messenger of the beast deity, he would not even take a second look. Then what about wealth? Gu Mingming scratched her head. He was just a damn bird. Why would he need wealth? Heavens, could he give me Lei Zhenzi's thunder god hammer? Maybe even Birdman like that thing. Gu Mingming felt like she was going crazy. Raising her head, Gu Mingming looked at Leah with a pitiful gaze. "I am indeed not suitable to think about people. What should I do? I want the love of the sky, but I don't want to hand Elvis over. Leah, can you think of a way?" Leah smiled in satisfaction but shook his head. He knelt down on one knee and hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his finger. "No, my dear Gu Mingming. You should say Leah, think of a way. Don't you know that? If it is your order, I will definitely execute it." Just like how he would rather be injured, or even die than to level up at the third level. At the crucial moment of that battle, it was Gu Mingming who ordered him not to be injured. So he agreed with a smile and broke through to the third level. If it was her order, even if it did not match his own plans, he would still execute it. But ever since that time, Gu Mingming never spoke to him in a commanding tone. Actually, he was very disappointed. He had been waiting for her to trust him and rely on him. She would no longer think of solving problems by herself, but instead lay lazily in Elvis's arms, casually throwing troublesome matters to him and ordering him to solve them. Only then would he feel that he was needed, and only then would life have meaning. Facing Li's urgent gaze, Gu Mingming said softly, "Yeah, I want the love of the sky, but I don't want to give Elvis to him. Leah, go and think of a solution." Li's smile was very blissful, even more dazzling than the warm sun in March. He held Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed the back of it. "As you wish, my queen." That night, Ian and Oriton arrived at Sauter together. For the first time, Leah did not return to the stone castle for the night, and instead had a secret discussion with Ian, Jiaoyu, Huda and Oriton in the meeting room for the entire night. They analyzed all the known information and came up with a meticulous plan step by step. Like a net that was about to catch a bird, they slowly spread it out unknowingly and wanted to trap Gregory within a month, manipulating people's hearts. Chapter 1265. Leah said that all humans would have greed, and this greed would become a chain strangling his throat. The other end would be in the hands of an outsider, and he would naturally become a stray dog. He had schemed against the messenger of the beast deity in the past, but he did not know that the messenger of the beast deity was Gu Mingming. He had paid a heavy price for it, and after that, he no longer dared to look down on all living things from the perspective of God, to arrange other people's destinies, and to plot the path of others' lives. It was really a long time before he returned to his old profession. The next day, Gregory was invited to the stone castle. He was especially cautious the moment he entered, and was always on guard. But from start to end, Gu Mingming's family did not mention anything about the Mota Mountains. They only talked about the interesting things in their lives, some trivial and scattered, and completely in the style of daily life. There was not a single bit of probing or attacking content. During the meal, Leah greeted Gregory warmly, telling him that he must try his best dishes. Gregory was not used to such warmth, but could not reject it, so he could only accept. After living like this for more than 10 days, Gregory had gradually relaxed his vigilance. He had even developed the same habit as Oriton. Every morning he would fly out and bring back some bird eggs and flying beasts. Then he would head straight to the stone castle to share a meal. Oriton was especially friendly towards Gregory because it was actually very difficult for land orcs to hunt for birds. Even if they managed to catch them, they were either too young or too old. On the other hand, Gregory could always bring back plump and juicy birds that were in the prime of their lives. Ian had already arrived at Sodor for many days, but strangely, he did not show himself. Gu Mingming occasionally asked about Leah, but he always changed the topic. Gu Mingming then understood that Leah had his own plans, so she did not bring it up again. Half a month had passed, and Sodor welcomed another batch of uninvited guests. Elvis felt the restlessness of the wolf pack, and could not help but frown. "I will go out to take a look." Gu Mingming's expression was also unfriendly. She shook her head and said, "Let's go together." The originally lively scene instantly turned cold because of Elvis and Gu Mingming's expressions. Lee's smile did not diminish, but there was a hint of malice in it. He followed behind Elvis, not saying a word. Oriton had a poker face to begin with. His expression didn't change, but his body was emitting the aura of battle. Gregory subconsciously became vigilant. His muscles tensed up as he followed behind them. He didn't even think about what a battle between land beasts had to do with him. Why did he want to get involved? He just followed Gu Mingming, and the rest out as if it was a matter of course. The wolf pack would follow Elvis closely the moment he left the vicinity of the stone castle. As a result, what was originally a family trip suddenly became a grand sight. The wolf beasts in the tribe all sensed Elvis's aura and followed him. The Snow Fox tribesmen did not want to be left behind and also joined in, following behind Leah. The people from the 16 tribes did not know what was going on, but also followed. So when everyone appeared at the border of Sodor, the scene looked like a huge army pressing down on the border, ready to invade the world. There were 7 to 8 orcs standing at the edge of the tribe. They were so frightened by this scene that their stomachs and legs were cramping. They said while trembling, Sir Messenger. It was the young master who asked us to deliver grapes." Chapter 1266. That orc shook his head. Originally, there were more than 20 stray beasts carrying the grapes over. But for some reason, they suddenly screamed and ran off. Gu Mingming chuckled and did not say a word. Thinking about how afraid Wabi was of her, it was not hard to guess why the stray beasts had fled. Gu Mingming scanned the surroundings coldly. Not a single stray beast's aura could be sensed. She then retracted her cold aura and said, "You guys follow me back to Sodor for a rest today. We'll set off for Zacharias tomorrow. Tell Qixien not to let stray beasts deliver grapes in the future." "Yes, great messenger." The orc who had delivered the grapes nodded, and went back to pick up the huge stone basins containing the grapes. Elvis signaled with his eyes, and the wild wolves all stepped forward to do the work of carrying the grapes. Carrying the basins of grapes on their backs, they followed Gu Mingming and the rest back. They had come in a threatening manner, but when they returned, it was more like a joyful and relaxed company outing. They did not head back to the tribe, but headed in another direction. There was a small stream there, where Elvis had previously brought Gu Mingming to wash her nose. They had almost settled down there. When they arrived at the stream, Elvis and Leah, who had seen Gu Mingming wash the grapes last year, personally went into the water. After all, Fei Rui was not around, so they could not use the 3-wheeled washing machine to wash the grapes. They could only rely on their own hands to wash the grapes. Fortunately, there were enough people following them out, so it saved them a lot of time. Gu Mingming removed her beast skin boots and soaked her feet in the stream. She sat on a rock and kicked the water for fun. Gregory stood beside her, looking down at her from behind. How should he put it? Her coldly commanding the army in Elvis's arms was too eye-catching. Even if there was a stronger beast king standing beside her, her brilliance could not be overshadowed. She was clearly a petite and soft body, but it contained an energy that no one could ignore. It was as if she was the true owner of this world, looking down on all living things from a bird's eye view. Gregory had a momentary illusion that Gu Mengmeng was a glowing person, dazzling but unable to shift his eyes away. At that moment, his brain could not make any sense of judgment. Apart from her face, he could not see anything else. After spending more than 10 days together, Gu Mengmeng had always been a warm and radiant image. Even though he knew that she had a huge amount of energy, he had never sensed a hint of danger from her. But just now, she just slightly furrowed her brows, and the murderous aura from her whole body shocked the entire 9 regions. It made people shudder with fear, but at the same time, it also made them inexplicably excited. But now, she was kicking the water with her bare feet, smiling like a child. "Grace, do you want some?" Gu Mengmeng turned around and plucked one grape from the bunch of grapes that Leah had washed for her. She extended her arm and passed it to Gregory, who was standing behind her. She turned around and realized that he was in a daze. She could not help but smile and say, "Hey, you came back to your senses." Gregory cleared his throat awkwardly and turned his face to the side, but he could not shift his gaze away from Gu Mengmeng's smiling face. He took the grapes from her hands and said with a hoarse voice, Thank you." "You're welcome." Gu Mengmeng did not say anything else. She turned around and continued eating her grapes, completely not bothered by Gregory's distracted state just now. Gregory placed the grape into his mouth and licked it lightly. The juice flowed everywhere, filling his mouth with a fragrant sweetness. Chapter 1267. After washing the grapes, Elvis asked someone to send the grapes back to the stone castle, while he handed Gu Mengmeng over to Leah. He went to the forest to find a tree suitable for making wooden barrels to store wine. Leah smiled the entire time, ignoring Gregory's gaze that was glued to Gu Mengmeng. He was not jealous at all, as if he did not care at all. The stone castle was the residence of the 2 beast kings and the 9th highness, so outsiders were not allowed to enter. So after washing the grapes, other than those who helped to carry the grapes, the rest of the tribesmen returned to their own homes. Only Gu Mengmeng, Leah, Gregory, Oriton and Sandy's family were left in the stone castle. Gu Mengmeng divided the grapes into 2 big basins, one for Sandy to bring back to eat, while asking Leah to keep the other for them to eat. Then, she placed the remaining grapes in the stone basin, and called the little snakes over to grind the fruits into mud like last year. Sandy was intrigued and chased after Gu Mengmeng with questions, while Gu Mengmeng answered all of them patiently. It was only when Elvis returned with his men carrying the newly made wooden pail and the temporarily sealed stone basin's lid that Sandy could finally relax. She tugged at Gu Mengmeng and said, "The way that fellow looked at you was not quite right." Gu Mengmeng looked over and Gregory immediately averted her gaze. He turned his head stiffly and looked a little suspicious, but Gu Mengmeng did not think too much about it. After all, he had made it clear from the start that he did not fancy her, so he would not slap her in the face like this, right? Sandy saw that Gu Mengmeng was not paying attention and tooted. She poked Leah again and said, "That bird man is powerful and has a unique look. He is on a different path from you and Elvis. If Gu Mengmeng accepts him, you might fall out of favor." Leah just smiled and said nonchalantly, "What else can I do? My Gu Mengmeng is so outstanding. Everyone will definitely love her. If I guard against everyone, then I will be filled with love rivals." Sandy raised her eyebrows, thinking to herself, did Lee's brain get squeezed through a door? Why did he suddenly change his mind? Wasn't it time to use her as a love rival to scare her? What did he say the last time? He wanted her to thank him for not being a male, or else he would definitely kill her to prevent her from fighting with him for love. Why are you pretending to be generous now? Leah seemed to have seen through Sandy's thoughts and added, "Moreover, Gregory will only stay here for a month. After a month he will return to the Mota Mountains. Even if he mates with Mengmeng now, they can only be lovers for about 10 days. As for me, as long as Mengmeng is happy, I can endure anything. So if Mengmeng wants to accept him, I can endure it for about 10 days. Grace clenched his fists at Leah's words. His chest felt stifled and uncomfortable, but he couldn't tell the reason. He would leave in 10 days. This was something he had set himself. He was the leader of the vulture race. He had come down to fulfill the marriage agreement, but the heart of the desert was now in the hands of a male. This marriage agreement could not be fulfilled, so he had no reason to stay. He had to return to the Mota Mountains to continue protecting the vulture tribe's sacred grounds. He probably wouldn't come down from the mountain ever again. So I won't be able to see her after 10 days? She was so bright and beautiful. She was so decisive. 10 days later. Would they never see each other again? What was up with this uncomfortable feeling all over his body? Grace's brows were tightly knitted together. He couldn't explain the strange feeling in his body. Perhaps he had left the mountain for too long and was not used to it. 10 days. He would return after 10 days. Chapter 1268. Gregory. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "Don't listen to Li's nonsense, they are just joking." Gu Mingming thought that Gregory's expression was not good, because Leah had gone overboard with his joke. After all, to the males in the beast world, mating was a sacred thing and should not be used as a joke. Gregory's face was expressionless, but his eyes dimmed. He nodded and said, "I know." "Oh right. What is the bird you brought back previously? The one with beautiful feathers." Gu Mingming changed the topic to avoid awkwardness. Gregory thought for a while and said, "Melody?" Gu Mingming nodded furiously and said, Yes, that's it. Is it hard to catch that bird?" Gregory shook his head and said, "Not hard. It was just that the habitat of that bird was rather far away, and they happened to pass by this area when they were migrating previously, so Gregory caught 2 for Gu Mingming to try." "Then can you catch a few more? I like the feathers of that bird and want to make a fan with feathers. It would definitely look really good." Gu Mingming had been thinking about it for a few days. She had tidied up the feathers of the 2 Melody previously, but it was not enough to make a big fan with feathers. Gregory nodded and said, "All right." To catch a Melody, Gregory would need to fly at full speed for half a day without stopping. A round trip would take an entire day. If he could catch 2 at once, he would need to make a few rounds to catch enough for her to make a fan. That was good too. He would not have to keep looking at her when he helped her catch a Melody. Perhaps he would not feel so strange if he looked at her less. With that, Gregory spread his wings and flew away. Gu Mingming stood at the same spot and reached out her hand to Air Kong. Her sentence, "Go after eating," turned into a mumble. She shook her head helplessly and said, "He's still an impatient person. Forget it, Gregory is so powerful he won't let himself be hungry." Gu Mingming didn't think too much about it, and just turned around to play with Sandy. She said that when the feather fans were ready, they would each have one so that they could use the fans to fan themselves during the hot rainy season and dry season. There was no need to use the elephant ear leaves anymore. Leah looked at Gregory, who had flown far away, with a faint smile on his lips. Meanwhile, Gregory, who was soaring in the sky, kept replaying Li's unintentional joke in his mind. Even if they mated now, they could only be a loving couple for 10 days. This sentence was like a spell, lingering in Grace's mind endlessly. Distraught, he rushed into the Melody's resting place and easily grabbed 2 Melody with his claws that were as sharp and hard as steel. After circling around, he flew back towards Solder like an arrow released from a bow. When he came back, it was already noon the next day. Gu Mingming was taking an afternoon nap, and Gregory had mixed feelings about not seeing her. He didn't know why he seemed to be afraid to see her. When he heard that she was taking a nap, he was relieved, but the sense of loss came one after another, overwhelming him. Chapter 1269. 9 days, Gregory's heart stopped for a moment, as if something sharp had pierced his heart. The pain made it hard for him to breathe, and he frowned instinctively. Without saying a word, he spread his wings and flew towards the habitat of the Melody. During the flight, he was in a state of absent-mindedness, flying based on his instincts. His mind kept replaying the countdown that Leah had accidentally mentioned. 9 days, there were only 9 days left. Could that feather fan be completed? If only it could, she was so looking forward to it. What expression would she have when it was completed? Would that pair of clear eyes be sparkling? Would she smile like a child? If he was the one who caught all the Melody for her, then her smile, Would a part of it belong to him? With that thought in mind, Gregory returned to the stone castle of Sodor on the morning of the 8th day of the countdown. He ignored the fact that he had repeatedly broken his flight limit to fly back. He was afraid that he would find out that he wanted to see her earlier. He was afraid that she would be taking an afternoon nap when he came back. He was afraid that he wanted to see her. He wanted to see her like crazy. Gregory, you don't look too good. Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, who was carrying 2 malati in his hands, and was a little confused. I haven't seen you for 2 days, where did you go? Gu Mengmeng still did not know that the malati was very far away. Gregory would need to fly for a day and a night to catch these 2 birds. Nothing much. Gregory handed malati over to Leah, and subconsciously walked to the water bucket to look at himself in the water. His complexion was really terrible. The vultures were not weak birds. It was normal for them to not sleep for a few days and nights. But he had only flown for 2 days and he was already so haggard. The problem was not the lack of rest or food. The anxiety and uneasiness in his heart was the real culprit. I'll leave first. No matter what, Gregory still did not want Gu Mengmeng to see him in such a pathetic state. Since you're already here, let's have a meal together. Gu Mengmeng called out to Gregory. Gregory pursed his lips. He felt as if he was fighting with himself. He longed to look at her one more time, but he was afraid that his current sorry state would ruin his image in her heart, so he hesitated and didn't move forward. Leah pushed Gregory lightly and said, Oriton always eats with us every time he brings back prey. If you don't eat, we won't dare to accept your malati in the future. It'll look like we're taking advantage of you. All right. Gregory lowered his head. A hint of loneliness flashed across his eyes. He was no different from Oriton. They were just people who shared a meal and provided prey. She only had her 2 partners in her eyes, so why would she care about his image? What was this sour and oppressive feeling? They had clearly said that they didn't like each other when they first met. She carried out her words. But what about him? When did it start to waver? At the dining table, Gu Mengmeng used her chopsticks to poke at the meat in her bowl, her face full of worry. Gregory wanted to ask her what was wrong, but he clenched his fists and could not open his mouth. He was in no position to ask about her thoughts. Was he? But why did he care so much about it? Chapter 1270. This joking sentence made Gregory tense up, and he lost control of his expression in an instant. He stared at Gu Mengmeng with widened eyes and his heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of his throat. The sound of his heartbeat was deafening. Gu Mengmeng had been poking the meat in her bowl with her head lowered all along. She did not even look up, so she did not know how exaggerated Gregory's expression was. She just shook her head lightly and said, The rainy season has been going on for almost a month. Usually at this time, little shit should have arrived long ago. In an instant, Gregory's state of mind had changed from the scorching heat of the Mecca desert to the bitter cold of the Mota Mountains. His eyelids were extremely heavy and he could not help but lower his head. His gaze finally locked onto the bowl in front of him. It was so empty that there was no color in it. She only shook her head lightly. Why did he feel as if the Mota Mountains were collapsing in front of him, and the ground was shaking? She had already said that she did not like him. 8 days later, he would leave this place and return to the Mota Mountains, never to see her again. He knew everything, but he could not control his anticipation, hoping that she would nod and say that she could not bear to part with him, that she hoped he would stay. But so what if she said that? He would not stay. The one who was engaged to the vulture tribe was the female who inherited the heart of the desert. But Gu Mengmeng clearly did not have the heart of the desert, and the one with the heart of the desert was not a female. Wasn't he destined to be alone for the rest of his life? Since that was the case, it was a better outcome for her not to like him. His uncontrollable heart must have been because he had been down the mountain for too long. The climate here was different from the top of the mountain. It was all right. They would return to the Mota Mountains in 8 days. By then, without Gu Mengmeng, his life would return to its previous peacefulness. But how did he survive on the Mota Mountains in the past? Why was it that he could not recall it more and more recently? Elvis and Leah took in all of Gregory's expressions and gave each other a faint smile of mutual understanding. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, "If you want to see him, I will send someone to the Snake King Valley to look for him." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Little shit is not coming. It must be because he is afraid of me. I don't want to force him. Seeing him trembling in fear in front of me makes me very sad." Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and said, "But I miss him very much. I always feel that something is missing when little shit is not around. TSK, I haven't hit him for a long time, my hands are itching." Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "Hit me, I'm a beast king now. I'm more resistant than him." Gu Mingming pouted and shook her head saying, "You didn't even retaliate. I hit you, that's not called fighting, that's called one-sided abuse, it's domestic violence." "No." Elvis sighed and his gaze swept across everyone present, finally landing on Gregory. "Why don't you beat him up? Although it's only a third-level beast, it's from the Mota Mountains after all. It's much stronger than an ordinary third-level beast and looks like it can take a beating." Gu Mingming followed Elvis's gaze and landed on Gregory's face. Then she shook her head and said, "I still want to beat little shit up." Gu Mingming lowered her head and continued poking at the meat in her bowl, mumbling, "Little shit won't hide from me forever, right?" Chapter 1271. The meal ended abruptly because Gu Mingming had something on her mind. Leah took out Gu Mingming's half-completed feather fan and placed it on the table. "All right, give Wabi some time to get used to it. Maybe he'll come when you're done with the fan?" "Really?" Gu Mingming looked up at Leah. Leah nodded. Really?" Leah added in his heart. "Since you want to see him, I will bring him to you even if I have to resort to trickery. Moreover, with Wabi's stupidity, it would be too easy to trick him." Gu Mingming's mood improved upon hearing Lee's words. She picked up the fan and continued sticking the feathers onto the bamboo fan frame. As she did so, she said, Gregory, I really have to thank you. If not for you, I would not have so many feathers to make a fan. I wanted to keep the first one for myself, but since you provided the feathers and you are returning to the Mota Mountains, I will give it to you after it is done. In the future, you can give it to a female you like, and perhaps you can trick a wife into coming home." After all, the beast world was lacking in resources, and the females here had never seen anything good. A little romance was enough to win a female over. For example, the last time in the bamboo forest, Gu Mingming had made a few cups out of a piece of bamboo and carved a name on each cup. Such a small object was extremely precious to Sandy. Mandy also placed it at home and used it to drink a cup of water every day, making it seem like some kind of sacred ritual. Before using it, she would have to wash herself before using it on the cup. It was really not impossible to trick a wife into coming home with such a fan. Gregory's gaze landed on the half-completed fan in Gu Mingming's hands. Trick a wife? If he gave it to her, would she want it? Okay. Gregory moved his lips and smiled bitterly. "I'm done with my meal, so I'll be leaving. I will bring Melody to you tomorrow." Thank you." Gu Mingming looked up with a smile before continuing to stick on her fan. Gregory spread his wings and left, his gaze deep and profound. 8 days, he only had 8 days left. If she had finished making her fan in these 8 days, would something have changed between them? Gregory could not tell what he was looking forward to. All he knew was that he wanted to catch enough Melody for her as soon as possible, so that she could make the fan. Counting down to the 7th day, Gregory came up with a strange idea. He used vines to tie the bound Melody's feet together one by one. Then he grabbed the vines and flew back. This time he brought back a total of 26 Melody. Enough for her to make a fan. Moreover, he did not need to fly anymore. There were only 7 days left. He wanted to stay by her side and watch her stick the feathers on the fan one by one. Even if she did not raise her head to look at him, as long as she could stay in his gaze, that was enough. When Gregory returned, Gu Mingming was using the snake skin to filter the grape wine. She scooped the grapes from the stone basin into the wooden barrel, discarding the pulp. It was just that his eyes were empty, lacking a bit of spirit. He looked very disappointed. Chapter 1272. Gu Mingming nodded and glanced at Gregory from the corner of her eyes. She smiled politely. You're back. You brought so many back this time? Are you leaving early? Gregory shook his head. It's just too troublesome to fly back and forth, so I brought more back in one go. Gu Mingming nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. I thought you were leaving early. It's so hard for me to have a friend whom I can get along well with. I can't bear to leave just like that. Gu Mingming's unintentional words made Gregory tremble. She said can't bear to leave? Gregory felt as if a rainbow cake had fallen from the sky and smashed onto his head. He was completely dumbfounded. So the 3 words can't bear to leave were so mesmerizing? Yeah. Gregory didn't even know what he should say. He just stared at Gu Mingming without blinking. Leah waved his tail and chuckled. My Gu Mingming is always so sentimental. Even if you don't leave now, won't you still have to leave 7 days later? Gregory heard the sound of something cracking. He clenched his fists instinctively. His throat felt as if it was being strangled, and he couldn't make a sound. Gu Mingming sighed involuntarily. She was filled with regret. She liked Apartment and My Own Swordsman, because these 2 dramas had a common characteristic. That was, lovers were by her side and friends were opposite. Every day was joyous and the people she liked would gather together. But her friends were scattered all over the beast world. Saint Nazir's Barit, Ian and the 16 valued females, Sauter's Hutta, Jiaoyu and Sandy's family, Zacharias Chixian, Kanwu, Natalie and Peter's family, Snake King Valley's little shit. Why couldn't they all gather together? Gu Mingming's disappointment contained too many emotions. But to Gregory, this sigh only represented her reluctance to leave him. These few days he had been hoping for her reluctance to leave. Now that it had come, he was in even more pain. He knew that they had to separate, so why did he want more? The more he obtained, the more he couldn't let go. He was torturing himself. Leah smiled nonchalantly and carried Gu Mingming to Elvis. All right, don't think about it anymore. Go take a nap and leave this to me. Aren't we going to see Daji and Kiera at Sandy's place in the afternoon? Gu Mingming was also in a bad mood, and did not have the mood to continue fiddling around. She just nestled in Elvis's arms and did not say a word, allowing Elvis to carry her back to the stone castle for an afternoon nap. After Gu Mingming entered, Leah acted as if he could not see Gregory's anxious gaze. He just looked at Oriton and said, Oriton, make a trip to the Snake King Valley and tell Wabi Gu Mingming is in trouble. And then? Oriton asked. Leah chuckled. There's no more after that. After saying these 4 words, I'm afraid you can't even catch up to Wabi's shadow. Oriton was expressionless. Leah waved his tail and said, I will grill fish for you when we return. Without replying, Oriton had already turned to leave, leaving Leah with a resolute back view. The fortitude of a foodie, she. Gregory frowned, not understanding Lee's meaning. Although Gu Mingming did not seem to be in good condition, she did not look like she was in trouble. Chapter 1273. Gregory's heart skipped a beat. That's right. Even though he knew she was powerful and had a Wolf King partner protecting her, and even saw her safe and sound with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but worry about her when he heard the words Mingming is in trouble. Was there something he hadn't realized? What kind of trouble had she gotten herself into? There was even a moment when Gregory suddenly rejoiced in his heart. If she was really in trouble, wouldn't he have a good excuse to postpone the 1-month appointment? He wanted to stay by her side, not just for 7 days. This thought made Gregory's heart flutter. The muddle-headed state he had been in for the past few days started to clear up. All the strangeness and discomfort he felt had the most logical explanation. What difference in air pressure, difference in environment. He clearly had fallen for that little female and didn't want to leave. The person he had wanted to get rid of as soon as he saw her as an eyesore had now become a precious treasure that he couldn't bear to let go of even for a second. After understanding his own thoughts, Gregory didn't feel the slightest bit relieved. The marriage agreement between the Vulture tribe and that great lord was a dead end. Now that there was no female to inherit the heart of the desert, the leader of the Vulture tribe was destined to be lonely for generations to come. He could never covet for love. Ha! The oath he made when he inherited the position of tribe leader had now become a curse. Lee's words had just touched on the point. Looking at Gregory's expression, he knew it was about time to reel in the net. Ha! It looked like it wasn't that his ability to scheme people had deteriorated, but that the person he had met was Gu Mengmeng, so he was destined to fail miserably. He said that Wabi and Gregory's concern leads to chaos. How could it not be applied to himself? He had always been led by the nose by Gu Mengmeng. Once she frowned, he couldn't do anything about it. But in this world, Gu Mengmeng was probably the only person he couldn't scheme against. Apart from her, he could place everyone else on the chessboard without a care, including himself. 6 days before Gregory had to leave. Morning. Gu Mengmeng had just finished her breakfast and was sitting outside the stone castle, basking in the sun. A chirp came from the sky and Gregory immediately went on high alert. He turned his head with a sharp gaze and went into a defensive state. There was no other reason other than that all the birds were on the Mota Mountains. Anyone who left was an enemy, and it would be a life-and-death battle. A huge pair of wings circled in the sky and landed steadily beside Gu Mengmeng. It was none other than Ian. He waved at Gu Mengmeng indifferently as if he did not see Gregory. Just as he was about to walk towards Gu Mengmeng, Gregory launched a fierce attack at him without any explanation. Ian was also a third-level orc. Although he had mated with Mandy, he had not broken through to third level and still needed to accumulate some battle experience. On the other hand, Gregory was an orc who had been at the peak of third level for a long time. In addition, the vultures had always lived on the mountain top of the Mota Mountains with the harshest weather. They had been tempered by nature, so their abilities were much stronger than orcs of the same level. Even though Ian was prepared for this attack, he was only able to avoid being hit in his vitals. A bloody wound spread from his collarbone all the way to his shoulder. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. It was a terrifying sight. Chapter 1274. With one question, the distance between them was immediately revealed. Gu Mengmeng had the powers of a beast king. No matter how restricted her body was, it was not something a third-level orc could withstand. Because it was the truth, Gu Mengmeng was worried that Ian did not hold back, and this push caused Gregory to be seriously injured. His throat was filled with blood, but he gritted his teeth to prevent any blood from leaking out. He forcefully swallowed the mouthful of blood back down. Clean up the family. Gregory gritted his teeth. Gu Mengmeng was still on guard against Gregory. She glared at him and prepared to retaliate. She tilted her head slightly and said, "Leah, treat Ian's injuries." Yeah. Leah pulled Ian over and pressed him onto the stone bench. He then retrieved a fishbone needle and a suture made from intestines from the stone castle, and started stitching up Ian's wounds. Although Ian always looked sickly, he was still the former leader of the Eagle Owl tribe. He had his own pride. When Leah threaded the needle through his flesh, he was sweating from the pain but did not make a sound. He just clenched his fists tightly and said, "I was the one who gave the order to leave Mota Mountains. I was also the one who betrayed the oath. The Eagle Owl clansmen were merely obeying the orders of me, the clan leader. This time I deserve it. If it's not enough, you can come at me. Come at me my ass." Gu Mengmeng did not even turn back. She kept her guard up against Gregory and said, "The Eagle Owl tribe has submitted to Saint Nazir. They are all my people now. If you want to touch them, you have to ask for my permission first." Gregory felt that the mouthful of blood he had just swallowed must have been boiling lava. Otherwise, why would he feel a burning pain from his throat to his chest, as if he had been drenched in boiling oil? By right, he should have replied to Gu Mengmeng arrogantly, "This is the family matters of the birds. You have no right to interfere." If Gu Mengmeng had insisted on stopping him, then he should have attacked Ian continuously before he breathed his last, until he died. But the words that were stuck in his throat were, "He's your man, then what about me? What am I?" He could not bring himself to ask because he knew he was asking to be humiliated. But the left side of his chest felt as if his heart was being rubbed against a hot pan without oil. It hurt so much that he didn't know what to do. Gregory's eyes were instantly filled with blood, but he could not shift his gaze away from Gu Mengmeng's face. His throat was choked by the question he wanted to ask but could not ask. Even breathing was extremely strenuous for him. Leah was already very familiar with dealing with this level of external injuries, and his techniques were extremely proficient. While Gregory and Gu Mengmeng were staring at each other, he had already stitched up Ian's wound. After washing his hands, he wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and grinned. "Aya, why are you so angry? Why couldn't they just talk things out? Why did they have to resort to violence? Besides, your males are still alive. Since when did you have the chance to beat people up? Go back and sit down, I'll take care of it." Gu Mengmeng took 2 steps back before returning to sit beside Ian. Looking at the wound that Leah had stitched up, she felt upset and said, "We just made it and we're already disfigured. I don't know how Mandy will blame me later." Ian did not appreciate her kindness. He snorted and said, "Disfigured what? I'm a male. This small wound will heal by tomorrow. There won't be any scars left." Chapter 1275. He wanted to say don't worry about it, but the blood in his throat was still bubbling and he could not open his mouth. He did not know what he was holding on for, but he just did not want Gu Mengmeng to see him vomiting blood. Leah did not force him and just continued. "From what I know, the rule of Mota Mountains is that once a bird tribe leaves Mota Mountains, they are never allowed to return. Otherwise, all the birds on Mota Mountains will gang up and kill them. But Ian has not returned to Mota Mountains, so there is no reason for you to attack him here, right?" Gregory was very clear that if he insisted on attacking Ian now, it would mean that he had broken off all ties with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng's attitude was very clear. She wanted to protect the Eagle Owl tribe and Ian. Just thinking about her guarded gaze just now, Gregory's heart was torn apart. For some strange reason, he nodded his head and admitted Lee's verbal game. This was his greed. He did not want to become Gu Mengmeng's enemy. At least in these last 6 days, he wanted to cherish every frown and smile of hers. Leah admired Gregory's adaptability and smiled. But the Eagle Owl tribe is indeed the traitor of Mota Mountains. It is not wrong for Ian to suffer this blow. Moreover, he is a male, fighting and killing is very normal. Don't you think so, Leader Gregory? Gregory nodded his head with difficulty. His gaze landed on Gu Mengmeng's face. Seeing that her expression had cleared up, the tightness in his chest could finally be released. Leah patted Gregory's back nonchalantly, as if to comfort him. In the end, the mouthful of blood in Gregory's mouth was spat out by Leah just like that. "Aya, why did you vomit blood?" Leah exclaimed in surprise. He then hurriedly pulled Gregory to sit at the side of the stone table, diagonally opposite Gu Mengmeng. He took out a clean beast skin for Gregory to wipe the corners of his mouth and said in a seemingly reproachful but yet helpless and doting tone, "Gu Mengmeng, aren't you being too heavy-handed? It's just 2 males fighting. It's fine if you side with them, but you still want to kill them?" Gu Mengmeng was a little dumbfounded when she saw Gregory vomiting blood. She was too anxious just now and did not hold back her strength. She seemed to have pushed him quite hard. Clearing her throat, Gu Mengmeng stood up and walked to Gregory's side. She took the beast's skin from his hands and helped him wipe the corners of his mouth. She said awkwardly, "That's sorry, I was too heavy-handed. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. You don't have to apologize. It's my fault." These words did not sound gentle at all. But this was the most tactful way Gregory could think of to say, "Don't blame yourself, I'm fine, don't worry." Gu Mengmeng knew that she was not a person with a low EQ, but Gregory's words were too tactful. No matter how she listened, it sounded like Gu Mengmeng was using her power to bully others. Yes, his skills were inferior. In the entire beast world, there was only one Elvis who was as skilled as Gu Mengmeng. Other than Elvis, everyone else was inferior in front of Gu Mengmeng. But Leah was right. Outsiders should not interfere in a battle between males. Moreover, Ian was indeed the traitor of the Mota Mountains. As the leader of the Mota Mountains, Gregory did have the right to get rid of him. She was too rash in this matter, but she could not stand by and watch Ian get killed just like that. Chapter 1276. All right. Gregory replied with a bitter smile. All he could think of was the phrase a blessing in disguise. Gu Mingming added, but let me say this first. If Ian doesn't return to Mota Mountains, you cannot attack him anymore. If there's a next time, I will still beat you up. Gregory did not say anything, but Ian snorted coldly. I can settle my own matters myself. Do I need you to show off? You can't even beat him. Why are you acting like you're 13 points? Gu Mingming turned around and scolded him without holding back. Ian originally had the look of a sickly crown prince. Now that he was injured, his face turned even paler, and he looked like he was about to die. He clearly had handsome features, but he put on a look of disdain in front of Gu Mingming. He said, it's better to be beaten to death than to let a female stand up for me. TSK, when will you get rid of your bad habit of being a busybody? Gu Mingming stepped forward and poked Ian's wound with one finger, causing him to clench his teeth in pain. However, Gu Mingming raised her brows and said, stupid bird man who doesn't know what's good for him. I really don't know what Mandy sees in you. Tithe. Gu Mingming, if you have the guts, wait for me to recover. Ian ground his teeth and said sinisterly. Gu Mingming clapped her hands and said with a face full of disdain, do you still think I am the weak little female from 2 years ago? So what if you have recovered? You still can't beat me? Ha ha ha. You're really not cute. Ian snorted. Gu Mingming chuckled. The whole world thinks I'm cute. Only you think I'm not cute. That only proves that your eyesight is bad and you have a problem with your sense of beauty. Haha, the whole world? Where? Ian retorted indignantly. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis on her left and Leah on her right. She smiled brightly and said, my hubby is my entire world. If they think I'm cute, then I'm cute. Elvis flexed his fingers and chuckled. Yeah, I'll help you kill whoever says you're not cute. That way, only those who think you're cute will be left in this world. Alright? Ian rolled his eyes and rejected the low-quality dog food that she was sending him. Gu Mingming won the first round. Gu Mingming proudly kissed Elvis and Lee's cheeks and took 2 fruits from the fruit platter. She bit one and threw the other to Ian. Ian had injured one shoulder, and could only use his other hand to catch the fruit Gu Mingming threw at him. He did not stand on ceremony and directly took a bite. Do you know about the stray beasts attacking Saint Nazaire? Yes, I heard from the informant. Are the losses serious? Gu Mingming asked. Ian shook his head and his gaze swept past Leah. Without stopping, he said nonchalantly, only Maya was lost. The other females managed to escape, because they went up the mountain to pray. The tribe lost some food and a few caves were messed up. These are all small matters. Barit and I can handle it. Gu Mingming nodded and did not say anything. After Ian finished his fruit, he asked again, then will you return to Saint Nazaire this winter? Mandy. Chapter 1277. Gu Mingming was so engrossed in her conversation with Ian that she did not notice Gregory's envious gaze behind her. He was extremely displeased with Ian's tone towards Gu Mingming. This displeasure was even greater than the displeasure he felt towards Mota Mountains when he broke his oath. Wanting to kill him because of the oath was his duty, but wanting to kill him because of his attitude towards Gu Mingming was a roar in his heart. When he saw the present, his anger had already subsided, and all that was left was loneliness. Ian and Gu Mingming were obviously not partners. They both had their own partners, and did not spend much time together. But from the moment they met, they were not at all distant. This was the first time Gregory saw Gu Mingming baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. In his impression, other than that time when she went out to pick grapes from the tribe, she was always warm to everyone else. However, Ian seemed to be very special. The way they interacted with each other was very different. Even though it was all sharp words, there was no anger. No matter how sharp their words were, when she had a delicious fruit, she would subconsciously throw one to Ian, and Ian would catch it without any hesitation and eat it. They could even switch from fighting to normal mode in an instant, and then from normal mode back to mutual attack mode. But even though Gu Mingming said that he was a bad friend who could not do anything but spoil things, the moment he was attacked, Gu Mingming still rushed out without thinking and stood in front of him. Ian must be special to Gu Mingming. But why? They were clearly not partners, so why was he so special? Envy, jealousy, he wanted to go crazy. Especially when Gu Mengmeng stood against him without hesitation for Ian. Gregory's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. For the past 24 days, she smiled at him, treated him well, used Melodi's feathers to make a fan, and even said that she wanted to give him the first one. She even said that she could not bear to give it to him. Were all these just illusions? Was he not even worth a mention in her heart? But just now, she wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips so gently and apologized. No matter how he did not go down the mountain. Gregory also knew that in the beast world, it was normal for a female to want to cut open a male's chest to see what his heart looked like. She just gave him a push. Why did she need to apologize? Gregory's attention was all on Ian and Gu Mengmeng. He completely did not notice Li's helpless chuckle. Sometimes strength and intelligence really couldn't be compared. It was just a clumsy method of giving a sweet date after a slap. But this Gregory was like a naive brat who didn't know the ways of the world. The first awakening of love was probably like this, right? Leah did not even need to think about it to easily guess what Gregory was thinking. If he had abandoned Mota Mountains like Ian, would Gu Mengmeng treat him the same way she treated Ian, and give him a special treatment? Leah did not even need to think about it. When he was in danger, she stood by his side without hesitation. This was the reason why Ian had long arrived at Sauter, but Leah did not allow him to show himself. Just like what Gu Mengmeng had said, beggars would not envy Ma Yin for his wealth, but they would envy the beggar on the neighboring street for getting $2 more than him today. Gregory was the same. He would not envy how well Gu Mengmeng treated Elvis and Leah, because they were Gu Mengmeng's partners and he was not. Chapter 1278. Every day, Leah would remind Gregory of the countdown of losing Gu Mengmeng. When Gregory's uneasiness and reluctance to part with her reached a peak, Leah would show him another possibility called Ian. A person who lived in the harsh cold would not be afraid of the cold, unless he had experienced warmth. A person who had nothing would not worry about gains and losses, unless he had obtained something. A person who had no desires would not have any weaknesses, unless he was greedy. So, Leah kept Gregory by Gu Mengmeng's side and did not mention a word about the Mota Mountains, gradually weakening his defenses. Then, as someone who had also escaped from the abyss of loneliness, he knew better than anyone how attractive Gu Mengmeng's sun-like warmth was to someone who had never experienced beauty. After experiencing warmth, he would naturally be afraid of the cold. And this greed was the chain that was strangling his throat. On the 5th day of Gregory's departure, Sauter was in an uproar. Before the sky brightened, a black figure rushed into the stone castle. It was so fast that even Elvis could not stand up in time, and could only protect Gu Mengmeng in his arms. His sharp claws grabbed the intruder's throat in an instant, but that person did not seem to feel it at all. He just stared at Gu Mengmeng's shoulders with bloodshot eyes and shook her with all his might. Gu Mengmeng, open your eyes right now. Open them. When Elvis saw who it was, he sighed in exasperation and retracted his claws. Gu Mengmeng was sleeping soundly when she was shaken so badly that the world spun around her. She looked at Wabiai in a daze and was completely unaware of the situation. She replied in a daze, "Little shit, what's wrong with you? I was the one who wanted to ask you. What's wrong with you? I'm warning you, I won't allow you to die." Gu Mengmeng's shoulders were hurting from the grip. She took a deep breath and could not calm herself down as she looked at Wabiai's crazed look. She smacked his head and sent him flying. Then, she rubbed her shoulders and stood up to walk over to Wabiai. "Calm down, who told you that I was going to die?" Wabiai was a little dazed from the smack. He stared at Gu Mengmeng with widened eyes. Seeing that she was indeed unharmed, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. "It's good that you're fine, it's good that you're fine, damn it. You scared me to death." Gu Mengmeng looked at Wabiai curling up in a corner trying to calm himself down. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She kicked him. "I hate it the most when people disturb my sleep. I'll let you off this time on your account. Think how to explain to me tomorrow. If you don't explain well, I'll cook snake stew with you. Sleep, the sky is not even." Gu Mengmeng snuggled back into Elvis's arms and fell asleep after a while. It was so Gu Mengmeng sure. Calm Gregory, who was recuperating in the stone castle, naturally saw the commotion. Heh. She's so cute even when she's angry. How good would it be if she inherited the heart of the desert? Gregory did not sleep the entire night. He just sat there in a daze as he stared at Gu Mengmeng's closed door. He sat there for the entire night. Chapter 1279. Gu Mengmeng did not feel good seeing Wabiai in this state. So she called Elvis and Leah over to discuss whether she should look for the beast deity to ask about the love in the sky since Gregory would be leaving in 5 days. Leah nodded in agreement while Elvis tugged at Gu Mengmeng's hand with a chuckle. What should I do? I feel a little nervous. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis suspiciously. After some thought, she finally understood that he was now a beast king, and could go with her to meet the beast deity in her dreams. She chuckled. Yeah, you should be nervous meeting your father-in-law for the first time. But my father is very easy to get along with, so it's fine. Elvis kissed the top of Gu Mengmeng's head and nodded in agreement. Leah wagged his tail sourly. Gu Mengmeng, let's hurry and find the spirit of the rocky cliffs after finding the love of the sky. I want to level up too. I also want to become a beast king, and accompany you to meet your father-in-law. All right. Gu Mengmeng agreed readily. She did not know that Li's true motive behind his coquettish act was to obtain the tear of the beast deity after becoming a beast king, so that he could extend Gu Mengmeng's life in the future. Leah smiled and nodded. His expression was extremely satisfied. Then he straightened his posture. Then let's sort out the questions you want to ask. Gu Mengmeng nodded. First, we need to know who that great lord is. I have a feeling that I know him and get along well with him. It's really annoying to lose a piece of my memory. Leah pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face. He gave a doting and indulgent smile. We must ask this question. After all, that great lord seems to have some connections with the vulture tribe. It will be beneficial for us if we can understand enough information. Also, Leah hesitated for a moment before telling Gu Mengmeng about how he had schemed against Gregory. Gu Mengmeng's eyes widened in disbelief. So, you mean that Gregory likes me now? Leah nodded with an expression that said, it's a pity, but it's exactly what you think. Gu Mengmeng slapped herself on the face. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Brother, how can you do this? It's too despicable to make use of other people's feelings. I feel like I'm a scumbag. Leah pulled down Gu Mengmeng's little hand and held it in his palm. He said cautiously, I didn't tell you beforehand because I didn't want you to become an accomplice. You didn't do anything to him, did you? So the person who schemed against him and used him was me. It had nothing to do with you. Besides, I'm using people's hearts, not their emotions. Gu Mengmeng pouted, her face full of grievance. Leah said, I allowed him to get close to you, but I did not force him to like you. He was the one who couldn't control his own heart, and couldn't extricate himself. To a certain extent, this situation was his own choice, and I merely foresaw this outcome. He willingly fell into depravity, using his feelings as the price to allow himself to be captured in exchange for greed. And it just so happens that I need this greed, that's all. Gu Mengmeng frowned. Speak human language. Chapter 1280. But you can't make use of other people's feelings. Gu Mengmeng felt extremely helpless. She could have asked Gregory to bring her to Mota Mountains in a righteous and confident manner, but now that he had fallen for her, she could not bring herself to do so. Because in terms of feelings, she could not possibly give him anything in return, so what right did she have to ask him for anything? Leah sighed helplessly and rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head, saying, It's just that there's one more person who likes you. Why do you have to be so troubled? Gu Mengmeng gave Leah an aggrieved look, letting him experience it himself. Leah surrendered helplessly, saying, How about this? If you feel that it's too much of a burden for you, after this matter is over, just cast a bewitching spell on him, and make him forget about his feelings for you. Everything that happened during this period of time is like a dream to him. In the future, when he returns to Mota Mountains, he will wake up from this dream and resume his previous life without any losses. But, if you still feel that you're losing money, then treat him better during this period of time. Leah shrugged before adding, intimate contact and mating are not allowed. Gu Mingming sighed, saying, things have already come to this, there's no other way. But Leah, to be honest, I'm very afraid of emotional debt. Don't make use of other people's feelings for me in the future. If something like Snake happens again, I will break down. All right. Leah hugged Gu Mingming and agreed seriously. Actually, he did not wish for so many people to covet Gu Mingming. But what other choice did he have? Gu Mingming was the brightest star in the world. When she opened her eyes, even the warm sun in March paled in comparison. In this world, who else could make people fall in love at first sight and be infatuated with her for the rest of their lives? But in his scheme, the most he could do was to allow others to like Gu Mingming, but he would never allow others to obtain Gu Mingming. Moreover, Leah would not feel any sense of guilt because of this. In the beast world, being weak was a sin in itself. If the other party could crush him in terms of intelligence or beat Elvis in terms of strength, then the other party would definitely not pity them when they snatched Gu Mingming away. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest, this was the law of nature. It was cruel but useful. However, since Meng Meng did not like it, there was no harm in not using this kind of trick next time. After all roads lead to Rome. Even if it was a little more complicated, there would always be other ways. After getting Li's promise, Gu Mingming nodded before continuing. Other than that, great lord, I also want to ask what secrets are hidden in Mota Mountains. It feels weird. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with that mountain, and it has something to do with me. Leah nodded. I am also very interested in the other treasures hidden in the Mota Mountains. Gu Mingming smiled and did not say a word. She was not interested in the treasures, but the Mota Mountains themselves. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. It was like, all the blood in his body was boiling, and he had an inexplicable desire to get closer. Chapter 1281. My instincts tell me that something must have happened when we were in the Mecca Desert. We forgot some crucial things. It was this forgotten information that caused me to change. Gu Mingming concluded. Leah nodded and said, yeah, I think so too. After thinking for a while, Leah added, Gregory said that the temperature on the mountaintop is extremely bad, and you don't have any fur to protect you. I'm very worried about this. Ask the beast deity if there's any solution? Yeah, got it. Gu Mingming answered obediently. Leah kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, all right, you can sleep with Elvis. I'll stay here to guard the two of you. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances, and the message was take good care of her. It was just that one was talking about her body while the other was talking about her soul. Elvis placed Gu Mingming on his chest, with one hand passing under her neck and wrapping around her back, while the other hand was placed on her waist. His large tail lightly covered her stomach, while his two slender legs intertwined with hers. Elvis placed Gu Mingming on his chest and placed one hand on the other. No one knew what would happen after they fell asleep. Elvis was not even sure if he could really go to the beast deity with Gu Mingming this time. So he wanted to hug Gu Mingming to the fullest extent, so that he could feel more at ease. Gu Mingming pressed her little face against Elvis's chest and listened to his heartbeat. She comforted him softly. Don't worry, just relax. Yeah. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little head again before slowly closing his eyes. Both of their breaths were light and even. Slowly, even the frequency of their breathing and heartbeats reached the same rhythm. Their consciousness gradually faded away. In the white fog, Gu Mingming held Elvis's hand and smiled faintly. Elvis also stared at Gu Mingming. He did not say anything but felt at ease. Even if there was only thick white fog around them, Elvis felt especially at ease because he could see Gu Mingming. The beast deity stood in the clouds as usual, and was not surprised to see Elvis. He just waved at Gu Mingming in a benevolent and amiable manner. But Gu Mingming felt weird because the amiability of the beast deity today was a little exaggerated. My precious daughter, you're finally back. Without another word, the beast deity pulled Gu Mingming over from Elvis's hands. With a wave of his sleeves, Elvis was flung far away. In the illusion realm, Elvis could not feel any pain, but he was still baffled by the beating and did not dare to retaliate, so he could only crawl back pathetically. However, he did not know why he could not close the distance no matter how much he ran, even though it looked like it was only 1 to 200 meters away. The beast deity completely ignored Elvis and pulled Gu Mengmeng to sit on the two-seater bench. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a sorrowful expression. "Io, my precious daughter has really suffered a lot. Look at how tanned your skin is, and how rough your hands have become. Ayaya. Why are you frowning? Did your partner not take good care of you? Don't be afraid. Tell me what you've been through. I'll help you." Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity with a face full of black lines. She totally did not understand what he was trying to do. She glanced at Elvis, who was still running towards them with all his might, but could not get any closer. She then turned her gaze back and said, "Father, did you take the wrong medicine?" Chapter 1282. Gu Mengmeng's hair stood on end from the beast deity's stare. His gaze was clearly saying, "If you dare to plead, I will break your legs." She shook her head stiffly and said, "It's only right for a father-in-law to teach his son-in-law a lesson. It's only right." The beast deity then nodded in satisfaction and said, "Of course, if I don't put him in his place the first time we meet. Does he think that my precious daughter is someone he can marry so easily? Doesn't he know whose precious daughter she is?" The beast deity glanced at Elvis and said, "Aren't you going to run faster?" At such a distance, Elvis could clearly see what the beast deity said to Gu Mengmeng, and what expressions he used. Receiving Gu Mengmeng's helpless and heartache expression, Elvis smiled and shook his head, indicating to her that he was all right and that he could handle it. After all, if Elvis had a daughter, he would definitely not be as merciful as the beast deity when he made things difficult for his daughter's first partner. The beast deity also ignored Elvis and Gu Mengmeng's flirtatious glances. He just held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and said, "Raising a daughter is like raising a pot of flowers. You water and fertilize her, but one day, a bastard called son-in-law takes away even the flower pot." Gu Mengmeng grinned awkwardly and said, "Father, have you been addicted to TikTok recently?" The beast deity had originally wanted to cry, but was exposed by Gu Mengmeng. He awkwardly cleared his throat and forcefully held back the tears that had welled up in his eyes. He glared at Gu Mengmeng and said, "That's how it is. If you want to marry someone else's daughter, you have to at least do two things." Gu Mengmeng felt that the beast deity was possessed by a drama queen today. She and Elvis had been partners for almost 2 to 3 years, and he was only putting this son-in-law in his place now. Wasn't his reaction time a little too long? But thinking that the beast deity was doing everything for her, Gu Mengmeng felt very warm. Although Elvis would not bully her at all, there was someone who could be your backing, your path of retreat. Holding your hand and handing it over to another man, telling him, "If one day you don't love her anymore, don't lie to her, don't bully her, just give me a call, I'll come and fetch her home." That feeling was really good. It was so good that Gu Mengmeng thought she would never be able to dream of it in her entire life. Suddenly, the untouchable cord of kinship in her heart was violently plucked at this moment. Gu Mengmeng smiled and played along with the beast deity's harmless act, asking, What are those two things?" The beast deity glanced at Elvis from the corner of his eyes. "First, surpass your father. Second, please your mother. I am a father and a mother at the same time, so he wants to surpass me and please me at the same time. If he can't do those two things, and want me to acknowledge him as my son-in-law. King me." Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. Beast Ling line. T. Elvis returned her a determined gaze before transforming into a wolf and sprinting towards Gu Mengmeng with all his might. Gu Mengmeng felt that Elvis was really quite pitiful, so she wrapped her arms around the beast deity's shoulders and said, "But father, what if my mother-in-law also makes things difficult for me in the future?" The beast deity laughed coldly. "If they think they can afford to offend me, they can try bullying you." Gu Mengmeng's heart warmed. She hugged the beast deity and rubbed her furry little head against his shoulder. "Father is mighty and dominating. Unify the martial world." The beast deity held Gu Mengmeng's hand. "Daughter, look. This is the martial world Father has conquered for you. It will all be yours in the future. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 1283. Father that. The moment Gu Mingming opened her mouth, the beast deity gestured for her to stop. Old rules, you can only ask questions after watching the television series. Gu Mingming nodded. Yeah, let's begin. But the beast deity shook his head. He glanced at Elvis. I haven't accepted him yet. Why should I let him watch television with us? Gu Mingming held her forehead. Papa, my hubby has been running there for half a day. The beast deity snorted. So what? How much did you suffer to give birth to his wolf cubs? What about him? What did he do? Why should he enjoy the pleasurable process while you bear the painful consequences? Gu Mingming blushed. She shook the beast deity's shoulders. Father, maintain your persona. You are a deity. Is it really okay to be so dirty? The beast deity was so shaken that he was seeing stars, but he did not back down. With a snap of his fingers, Elvis was instantly pulled to their side. This level of running was nothing to Elvis. Although he was sweating a little, his expression was still stable. He didn't look like he was out of breath. This made the beast deity very unhappy. He felt like he hadn't vented his anger. So she hugged Gu Mingming's shoulder with one hand, and slapped away Elvis's wolf claws that wanted to grab Gu Mingming's little hand with the other. She said, Do you know how painful it was when my daughter gave birth to your child? Elvis nodded. His expression was solemn. Elvis had personally delivered Huda and the other little ones. Gu Mingming's tragic cries were still Elvis's nightmares. In Elvis's memory, Gu Mingming had made him feel so much pain that he wanted to die twice. The last time she was extremely quiet was when Snake carried her back to the Snake King Valley. At that time, she was like a broken doll without a soul. Her blood dripped all over the ground, but she could not even make a sound, as if she was dead. The other time was when she was giving birth. Her cries pierced through the clouds and shattered his heart. It was as if thousands of ants were gnawing on his bones. It was so painful that he became numb. Those 2 times were nightmares that Elvis could never forget. Seeing Elvis nod, the beast deity laughed coldly. No. What do you know? You've never given birth. How would you know? Elvis was speechless and could only lower his head to admit his mistake, with a I am guilty look. The beast deity chuckled, looking as if he was up to no good. Gu Mingming nudged the beast deity lightly. Father, you are a positive character. Don't smile so slyly. I will suspect that you are the villain behind the scenes. The beast deity raised his head and said, My precious daughter is my life. I will fight to the death with anyone who makes you suffer. For you, I don't care whether it's the righteous or the antagonist or the sweet potato sect. This drama queen father was really unparalleled when he was stubborn. Gu Mingming felt that, maybe she should not bring Elvis back in the future. Alright then father, tell me, what do you have to do for Elvis to be acknowledged? Gu Mingming smiled adorably, as if she was a good student begging her teacher for the final question. The beast deity glanced at Elvis and said, Why is it that you are the one enjoying childbirth and my daughter is the one suffering? You should at least suffer the same pain, and suffer the same pain to appease my anger. Chapter 1284. It's the best that you can think that way. I wanted to magnify my daughter's pain by 10 times for you to endure, but on account of your proper attitude, let's just magnify it by 8 times. Don't. Gu Mingming hugged the beast deity, her face filled with horror. Father, the bone cracks will open during childbirth. That kind of pain is really terrifying. If you magnify it by 8 times, he will die. The beast deity was displeased. He twitched his lips. 7.5 times. Gu Mingming shook her head with a pleading expression. Father, just the original degree will do. Please, you don't want me to be a widow, right? The beast deity smiled gently as he rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. It's all right. You still have Leah even if he dies from the pain. In the future, when Leah comes, he will have to suffer again. If Leah also dies from the pain, I will find a better one for you. Father, you are my biological father. Gu Mingming wanted to cry. The beast deity acted as if he didn't understand what Gu Mengmeng was implying. He nodded seriously. Yeah, of course I am your biological father. Why would a stepfather treat you so well? Am I right? Gu Mengmeng held onto the beast deity's shoulders. Father, you must have the right values. People say that it is better to demolish 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. Killing your son-in-law to find a new lover for your daughter is a degenerate act of morality and a twisted human nature. The beast deity held his heart with a heartbroken expression. His finger trembled as he pointed at Gu Mengmeng, as if Gu Mengmeng was extremely unfilial and had chased her elderly parents out of the house. All right. I have protected you with all my heart. You actually contradicted me for a little wolf cub. Ah, my heart hurts so much. Gu Mengmeng had a excuse me? Look on her face. Father, the Oscars owe you an identity number and a 10,086 golden statuette. Elvis's brain capacity couldn't handle the complicated situation before him. The beast deity had such a high status in the beast world that even looking up to him was a luxury. But he didn't expect the beast deity to be, so lively? And he didn't understand most of the conversation between Gu Mengmeng and the beast deity. But looking at the current situation, it seemed like Gu Mengmeng had a conflict with the beast deity, because she could not bear for him to suffer. Elvis did not want Gu Mengmeng to be put in a difficult position between him and the beast deity, so he tugged at her and said, Xiaomeng, I am a male. A male's endurance is much stronger than a female's. Furthermore, I am a beast king. Don't worry. I'm not afraid of pain. Elvis, believe me. The pain of giving birth is different from the pain you feel when you're fighting. Gu Mengmeng advised Elvis not to be stubborn. He should show his weakness at this moment. But Elvis smiled and rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head, saying, If you are in pain, I should be in pain 100%. This is the punishment I deserve. Now Lord Beast God is only punishing me 7.5 times. This is already very merciful. Moreover, I can only break free from this nightmare after I've endured the punishment. Only then can I truly face your next labor. Be good and don't interfere. Let me feel pain for you once, okay? The beast deity hugged Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and chuckled at Elvis, saying, Since you've already said so, what are we waiting for? With that, the beast deity twisted his finger, and a transparent square-shaped isolation barrier appeared beside Elvis. But with his strength he could not break free. Chapter 1285. Elvis nodded. Giving Gu Mengmeng insurance was the right thing to do. Even though he felt that he would never hurt Gu Mengmeng no matter what, having another layer of insurance would make him feel more at ease. Gu Mengmeng sighed. She felt that this was a situation where one was willing to take the hit, and the other was willing to take the hit. There was no room for her to intervene. The beast deity was still smiling benevolently. With a snap of his fingers, Elvis's body trembled. Sweat poured down like rain and his pupils dilated. His hands trembled as he supported himself against the transparent barrier. Tears flowed down the corners of his eyes. Gu Mengmeng's heart tightened. She looked at his palm through the barrier and asked, Is it very painful? In her memory, Elvis had 2 of the most intense battles. The first time was when he was clearing Snake's trap in the Snake King Valley. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed, and he was paralyzed in front of Snake's door, listening to Snake's last words, so weak. The second time was before they went to the Mecca Desert. He fought with Wabi to increase his strength. That time, Wabi really went all out and fought with him until both of them were on the brink of death. But Elvis did not cry during those 2 times. How painful was it now? He was actually crying? Elvis nodded, his lips trembling as he whispered, It hurts a lot. Sharp claws fiercely dug into his own heart. His brows were furrowed tightly and his masseter muscles bulged. His eyes were so bloodshot that the whites of his eyeballs could not be seen, and there were only blood vessels covering his eyes. Even though he looked so ferocious, Gu Mengmeng could see a deep love in his eyes. So, when you gave birth to the little wolves, it was this painful. Even if this pain was magnified 1,000 times on Elvis, he would at most grit his teeth. But the moment he thought of how this pain had tortured Gu Mengmeng, Elvis felt as if his heart had been gouged out by a bone-scraping knife, and then soaked in an electrified liquid, repeatedly rubbing and crushing it. That kind of pain he could not describe. He always knew that Gu Mengmeng was in pain when giving birth, but he did not know what that pain felt like. Even though his heart ached for the pain Gu Mengmeng had gone through when giving birth, so he decided not to let Gu Mengmeng have any more children in the future. But only now did he know that only after truly experiencing her pain would he know what it felt like to have his heart torn into a bloody mess. How could he have dared to say that he had cared for him before? What kind of heartache was this, to the extent of having his heart pierced by a needle? He really is a beast. How much of a bastard and selfish had he been? In order to have more bargaining chips to keep her, he made her pregnant, made her give birth, and made her suffer so much. The beast deity hugged Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and looked at Elvis in disdain. You can't take it anymore? Let me tell you, this is just the beginning of the pain. How long did my precious daughter suffer when she gave birth to your son? You haven't forgotten, have you? How could he forget? That day, from labor pains to delivery, Gu Mengmeng spent the entire night tossing and turning. The beast deity continued. The degree of labor pains will gradually increase. You just bear with it. Elvis's eyes were red as he nodded seriously. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with such heartache that it could drip blood. It was as if he was not the one in pain, but Gu Mengmeng, who was standing outside the barrier and not knowing what to do. Chapter 1286. The beast deity was unmoved and only said, "Have you ever seen someone giving birth halfway?" Gu Mengmeng was rendered speechless. She had no choice. The beast deity was the absolute ruler in this illusion realm. Even if she and Elvis had the power of a beast king, they could not exert any strength. So no matter if she wanted to help from the outside or if Elvis wanted to break free from the inside, as long as the beast deity did not nod his head, it would all be useless. So Gu Mengmeng just stood outside the barrier in a daze and at a loss, looking at Elvis, who was in so much pain but still smiled and told her, "It's okay, don't be afraid, he can hold on." Finally, after enduring the long labor pain, they entered the labor process. Elvis, that strong and unyielding man, was in so much pain that his legs turned to jelly and he directly knelt on the ground, panting heavily like a fish that had been beached. Even air was a luxury to him. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and bit her lower lip, unable to shift her gaze away from Elvis's face. She just said softly, "Father, I understand what you mean." "MMM?" the beast deity asked softly. Gu Mengmeng smiled bitterly and said, "Not only do you want Elvis to experience the pain I went through during childbirth, you also want me to understand how tormented and helpless he and Leah felt when they saw me in so much pain during childbirth." Turning her head, Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity with 2 streaks of tears and a faint smile. She said, "Father, thank you for your good intentions. I understand." The beast deity then heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. Ah. Following Elvis's deafening roar, this childbirth experience course finally came to an end. The beast deity waved his hand, and the transparent barrier was removed. Gu Mengmeng went forward to support the exhausted Elvis. She hugged his head and kissed it over and over again. She asked, "Does it still hurt?" "MMM?" Elvis locked Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms and choked with sobs. "It's me, who made you suffer. I'm sorry. Xiao Meng, I'm sorry." The beast deity nodded in satisfaction, but he did not mercifully allow them to continue hugging each other. She grabbed Gu Mengmeng's collar and snatched her out of Elvis's arms. Then she gave Elvis a tight slap, sending him flying far away. "Hugging my daughter in front of me? Do you want to die?" Gu Mengmeng's face was filled with rage. Elvis felt wronged. Why couldn't he hug his own wife? Dragging his weak and exhausted body, he staggered towards Gu Mengmeng. This time he did not walk on the spot, he could clearly feel himself approaching her step by step. Gu Mengmeng wanted to step forward to welcome him, but the beast deity wrapped his arms around her shoulders and refused to let go. He shook his head and said, "My daughter is not someone who can be married so easily. If he can't even take these few steps towards you, how can he accompany you on your journey in the future?" Gu Mengmeng's heart ached for Elvis's suffering, but there was nothing she could do. Elvis smiled at Gu Mingming and said, Xiaoming, don't worry. No matter how far away you are, I will find you. Even if you are separated by mountains and seas, nothing can stop me from getting closer to you. You don't have to come over. Just stand there and wait for me. Don't run away, don't hide, don't abandon me. That's all. Gu Mingming stood there and reached out a hand. I am waiting for you to hold my hand and bring me home. Chapter 1287. Only then did the beast deity chuckle. He stopped acting like a drama queen and said with the indifferent elegance that a deity should have. In my eyes, you are not worthy of my daughter. But because Gu Ming likes you, I reluctantly accept you. If you let me know that my precious daughter has suffered any grievances because of you, I will let you experience the true fury of the beast deity. Yes. Elvis lowered his head respectfully, not only to the supreme deity, but also because he was Gu Mingming's father. The beast deity released his grip and held Gu Mingming's other hand, saying, Come, my precious daughter, accompany daddy to watch television. With that, the beast deity pulled Gu Mingming to sit on the long bench for two people, while Elvis had no place to sit, and could only sit on the ground beside Gu Mingming. His eyes were filled with deep love, and he could not see anything other than Gu Mingming. The beast deity had no time to care about Elvis's thoughts. With a wave of his hand, a screen-like object appeared in front of the three of them. The setting was the amusement park at the end of the previous television series. The first attraction was called Waves Blossoming. A two-person seashell flew up and down, as if it was floating on the surface of the sea. When the attraction was activated, colorful bubbles would spurt out from the side, complementing the romantic music to create a relaxing and sweet atmosphere. As Snake and Gu Mingming had called out too hastily, none of them brought their family members. Only Snake and Gu Mingming were a couple and sat together. The rest were either two men or two women. But in the past, Gu Mingming was the one sitting with Bailan. Now that Gu Mingming was accompanying Snake, Bailan was alone. She sat on the seashell alone and had just fastened her seatbelt when she heard her roommate shout to the staff in the studio. Beautiful sister, there's no need to play music later. We have our own BGM. The staff readily agreed. After all, they had booked the entire place and were the boss. They could do whatever they wanted. Before Gu Mingming could react, Bailan's face darkened and she roared. Ning Qizhu, do you have to be so ruthless? Gu Mingming, shut your mouth. You are not allowed to sing, do you hear me? Gu Mingming, who was still in a daze, instantly understood what their background music was when she heard Bailan's shout. She burst out laughing. Snake roughly knew what background music they were talking about, but he did not say it out loud. He just looked at Gu Mingming's radiant smile and felt extremely happy. The small shell started to move, and colorful bubbles were blown out from the four corners. When the wind blew, the bubbles scattered, making the whole scene look beautiful. 1, 2, 3. After Ning Qizhu counted to 3, all the girls started singing in unison. We're different. You're the only one in the dormitory who doesn't have a girlfriend. The chorus, accompanied by the rising and falling laughter, brightened Gu Mingming's face and warmed Snake's eyes. After coming down from the waves, Bailan pointed at Gu Mingming with a pained expression. You little girl, even you betrayed me. Gu Mingming hid in Snake's arms and laughed hysterically. Only the heavens knew that she was the one being sung along with Bailan for the past half a year. So it was quite interesting to bully others like this. Chapter 1288. Zhang Jincheng shook his head and instinctively glanced at Gu Mingming. Originally, he could have had a girlfriend, but he was intercepted. King have it now. With that, Bailan locked her arms around Zhang Jincheng's neck and kissed him. That ferocity. It was as if she wanted to eat Zhang Jincheng like he was a smoked pork rib. Both boys and girls were heckling. Snake did not join in, but his lips unknowingly curled upwards. Although this Bailan's words were not pleasant to hear, it was undeniable that she would always help him get rid of those eyesores. Although Zhang Jincheng did not receive Gu Mingming's love letter, and the two of them did not even manage to complete a full confession that day, Snakel was still very unhappy that Zhang Jincheng was very handsome in Gu Mingming's eyes and was her type. However, if he had a girlfriend, and it was Gu Mingming's best friend, Bailan, then there would be no chance for the two of them. Yes, lovers should get married in the end. The 192m tall Zhang Jincheng was held by the neck by the 175m tall Bailan in the amusement park for the entire afternoon. When they came out of the amusement park, Zhang Jincheng broke free from Bailan's grip and said, "Bailan, there's something I have to make clear to you. Your confession doesn't count. We can't be considered a couple right now." Bailan was also very straightforward. She had never liked Zhang Jincheng in the first place, but she had been so infuriated by Gu Mingming and the other two that she had fooled around. So she simply nodded and said, "Sure." With that, Bailan let go. She chuckled and turned to look for Gu Mingming and the rest to play. But the moment she turned, someone grabbed her wrist again. Bailan turned around and looked at Zhang Jincheng with a puzzled expression, asking with her eyes, "What are you doing?" Zhang Jincheng gulped and said, "Bailan, I like you be my girlfriend." "Ah." Bailan looked at Zhang Jincheng in disbelief, not understanding what he meant. "Didn't you just say?" Zhang Jincheng scratched the back of his head and said, "Things like confessions should be left to the guys. Since I like you, I can't let you feel wronged. Whatever other girls have, I'll definitely let you have it too. Even if I can't give you the whole world, I can at least give you my whole world." Bailan blinked her eyes and said, "So you mean, at least, I have to give you a formal confession?" Zhang Jincheng smiled and said, "We've already kissed, you can't not take responsibility." Bailan snickered and hooked her arm around Zhang Jincheng's neck. "All right, Lil Miss will take care of it." Since Zhang Jincheng and Bailan were officially dating today, everyone decided to follow the basketball club's rules and go to KTV for another night. When did this rule start? Yeah, it started when Gu Mingming and Snake were dating. That night, Snake occupied the seat on Gu Mingming's left, while Bailan sat on Gu Mingming's right. Zhang Jincheng sat on Bailan's right, while Bailan gave Gu Mingming a look. "Now do you understand why I don't like him?" Bailan glanced at Snake's face, then used the excuse of being tipsy to tell Gu Mingming, "Men, you can't choose someone who is too domineering. You have to choose someone you can control. You see, there are 3 typical cases." Gu Mingming chuckled and raised her eyebrows, asking, "Which 3? You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.